Chris!
Heath.
I love cops.
Like the police officers?
No, not actual police officers. I just love cops in fiction. Or I tend to notice this. You want to know why?
Because you just have a thing for buddy cops. They turn you on.
Buddy cops? Well, when you say buddy cops, I immediately go to Ice Cube and The Rock Johnson and Kevin Hart, those buddy cop movies. Oh, didn't Bruce Willis also do one? I'm not even thinking about movies. Where I was coming from is the shows that I've been watching, because I've been blazing through original Law and Order from the 90s.
Interesting.
I'll be working on something, I'll put that in the background, and it'll just be like a fun thing to listen to. And sometimes I'll hear the dun-dun unironically. And this is my first experience with Law and Order, and I've been loving it. No one told me that it was such a good show compared to these modern day NCIS Omaha like cop shows that maybe your parents watch. I don't even know. Anyway, so I've been doing Law and Order. And then I also come to realize that, my favorite character in Better Call Saul, the Breaking Bad spinoff, is Mike, the ex-cop. I'm not more engaged by the cartel stuff going on or the lawyer stuff going on. I really just want to get to Mike. And I think maybe that has to do with how he's an ex-cop and he has to deal with his background. I don't know. And then a song that I've really taken to is a Jackie Chan song from his Hong Kong movie franchise called Police Story. Their theme song gets me so pumped. And I think this is just, I have no reason to doubt that I just love cops.
So men in uniforms are your thing.
I guess so. And this is what's most interesting. It causes a problem for my relationship.
Oh, really?
Because Bailey loves murderers. She's always watching these breakdowns of serial killer cases and unsolved mysteries and watching Criminal Minds, which more focuses on the perpetrator, the suspect, than it does the law enforcement side. So I think maybe that's why we're together, is because she loves murderers and I love cops, but you be the judge.
The yin to your yang, you could say. Do you find yourselves often rooting for opposite characters in these shows?
That might be interesting to see if we watch like OJ or we watched like Richard Jewell, and I talked about it. And I hated the cops in that movie, but maybe it's just those are bad cops. But yeah, I'll have to pay closer attention to see who, if she starts tearing up, which character she empathizes with. Welcome to Mobius Tubes, everybody.
Yeah, welcome to Mobius Tubes, everyone, which, believe it or not, is a video game podcast. This is episode 38, being recorded on April 19th, 2020. It's good to have you all joining us here today.
It's raining.
It is raining. I got my walk in just in time to avoid getting drenched, which I can go on the record definitively saying I'm not a fan of, the drenched part.
Okay.
Not the walking. The walks are great. I'm rambling a little bit here.
Oh, you didn't think my anecdote had a little rambling to do? We were going to ask me what I've been playing or something, right?
Yeah, we might as well jump into it. What have you been playing over the past couple of weeks, Heath? I got a sneak peek at your docket, and I saw something that had me very excited.
Yeah, let's go into that. So I started up Red Dead Redemption 2 one evening. And this is going to be like a spoiler-free post story.
Set the stage. How long has it been since you last sat down with Red Dead Redemption 2?
It's been, this is the first time I'm playing it in 2020. It's been months since I last booted up. What I set out to do was just to uncover some areas that I neglected to reveal on the map, finish up any of my quest lines that Arthur did, and just see, what else is there to do in this game before I put it on the shelf for good. And I enjoyed myself. As soon as I started marching south, there were still like emergent moments happening. Like I'll be on the road riding my horse, and as soon as you reach this threshold, a bunch of Del Lobos show up, and they're like, hey, you made a wrong turn, and then they start shooting you, which is fun because up until that point, you had been dealing with the O'Driscolls and the Murphy guys, all these other gangs that sort of represent the North, and you really hadn't dealt with any cartels until that point.
Yeah.
So the Del Lobos are like a breath of fresh air. I did the 2 tumbleweed bounty hunter quests.
Yeah.
Right? Because the marshal is like, if you're here to help, step inside. And then he gives you a bounty poster, and you're supposed to recognize that this is like the brother of the gunslinger that you dealt with in the middle of the game.
I believe I might have accepted those quests, but I don't think I ever checked them off.
Well, if you had you checked them off, they would have gone, very much the same as what you've been doing. You roll up on like a mining operation, and they have like dynamite, and you can grab the dynamite and start throwing it at them, and you hog tie the guy. And he's like, what do you want? Money? Women? And then you drive him into town. And you throw him in the jam.
In the clink.
And then I'm like, well, now what? So I kept riding along. And I don't know if you got to this, Chris, but there's a house that you can just be approaching on your horse at breakneck speeds, and it will just blow up, assumingly from a gas leak. But this house just erupts, and it totally throws you off because you're looking for what could be the cause of it, and you think it's really just some sort of thing that happens. And I imagine that if I went back to that house in Red Dead Redemption 1, I would see it's a wreck, and this is supposed to be like how did it get that way? But
interesting. Did you do much of a thorough investigation around the house explosion scene to see what might have happened?
You can see that there is a water heater cylinder type thing that was like the bomb that blew up the house.
Got it.
Yeah, so that was that. You continue riding, and then I got to like the sandstorm part of it. There's weather in this game.
Oh yeah, there's weather for sure. A sandstorm I may have never encountered though.
Yeah, it gets really hard to see, and Darude's sandstorm starts playing. I enjoyed that. I actually looked into that a little bit more. The sandstorms, they'll run from the southeast to the northwest. And there was this guy that was like trying to see if the places where lightning will touch down are secretly a map to a certain treasure, if he followed the storm all the way. Because storms last like a half hour in real world time. He was curious to see if in the northwest, where it's all snowy, whether or not the end of the storm would indicate a certain X marks the spot. But he couldn't find any in the snow. So that's still like a cool thing for them to include weather.
Definitely.
And then let's get to the most interesting part. And this is probably where spoilers come in. Trying to wrap up the stranger missions that Arthur left, finishing them with John Marston. So I don't know if you did this one. In Saint Denis, there is an artist named Charles Chardonnay. And
I remember him very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of up to no good. He makes a lot of artwork of him sleeping with the townsfolk's wives. And the last mission is you getting him onto a boat to escape to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I did the first 3 missions as Arthur and the last mission as John. And the way it plays out, and you mentioned this before, how you had to go back to the beginning with Mr. Black and Mr. White over in Rhodes.
Yeah, I had to start their mission chain back from scratch as John.
That is not the case in this situation. What John does is he's like, hey, I read about you in my friend Arthur's journal. He used to help you. And then Charles is like, yes, now get me out of here. You know, he just brushes it aside and you get him on a boat. And it's kind of like, all right, this stranger wasn't super tight with Arthur. So I doubt that the mission would have played out very much differently had it been the original character.
Was this the artist mission where he's disguised as a woman?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. This stranger side quest I replayed probably 4 times just because at the end you have to beat up some guys who want to be aggressive towards the artist.
Yeah, they have like a knife and yeah, there's 3 of them.
You become instantly wanted and the police swarm down upon you. And I would just rack up such a big bounty at the end of this mission time and time again that I'd restart it and try to make a quick escape. Eventually I was successful when I had my horse Ivory just waiting and ready to go, like right where, because I had played the mission so many times, I know where it finishes up. So I had my escape horse ready to go. And only then was I able to leave the scene of the crime with like an acceptable level of bounty on my head. Was this not the case for you?
No, I think maybe that had to do with John's greater health because he's not dying of tuberculosis. But I was able to shove past the first cop who was trying to investigate. And by the time he's blowing the whistle and setting everybody on red alert, I'm already on a horse, like riding the train track out. So I had no issue. I was hanging out with crocodiles by the time the wanted was down to like TED. It was yeah. I don't know.
That was my most failed, or I guess repeated mission in the whole game.
Maybe Arthur is just too frail at that point.
Go ahead and tell me more about Hamish Sinclair.
Okay, so that's the stranger mission that I kind of wish I finished with Arthur, right? Because this guy, you first find him, well, he gets kicked off of his horse Buell, and he can't chase it down because he's an amputee, because he was in the war. You rescue the horse, and he's like, oh, hey, come down to my cabin sometime. I'll show you how to, like, fish and stuff. And he's, like, a nice enough guy. He, among all of the strangers that you come across, like we've mentioned before, like the Nikola Tesla analog and the circus guy and the magician Magnifico. Is he a different person than the circus guy?
He is, yeah. Different groups of entertainers.
Yeah, so there's like a bunch of oddballs in the West. But Hamish Sinclair is like a cool outdoorsman who,
right?
You know, if you follow up, you're going to get like a good pelt or whatever. And at some point of the game, I valued that. So I went back. I did this like 3 times. And you get to talk to him. And there's sort of moments where you can drive the conversation, I feel. Like was the case with Rain's Fall, and you could talk about certain things and uncover more information about the story. I really enjoyed Hamish, and I neglected to finish his quest line before I switched the characters.
Oof, yeah. I see where this is going.
I go down to, I think it's O'Cray's Run is where his house is. And I knock on the door, and he's like, who are you? And he's like, oh, is it Sinclair? Did I say that right? Yeah. John's like, howdy, Mr. Sinclair, hee-haw. I read about you in Arthur's journal, and I really did you ever fast travel in this game?
Yeah, once I discovered by setting up a campfire, you can fast travel just about anywhere, I heavily made use of it.
Oh, man, you're like a fast travel machine in certain games, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I have no reservations about using fast travel.
I'll tell you this.
I've got other games to play.
I never fast traveled in Odyssey. Assassin's Creed. I only ran.
No wonder you hate that game.
No, because like, why would I try to skip most of the game by riding Phobos to the other side of the island when I can just beeline it and run probably faster and get some olive wood on the way? Because I'm trying to upgrade that ship, mind you.
Except you're not anymore so much.
No way. No, I wouldn't touch it. Yeah, I sunk that ship right before I uninstalled. Anyway, I Red Dead Redemption 2. Hamish is like, oh, yes, I remember Arthur fondly. And how's my boy doing? And John's like, he ain't too good. And Hamish is like, oh, that's a shame. Because he leads you into his cabin and he points on the wall and he's like, Arthur caught that fish. And you're like, oh, I miss him. Because John can be like, wow, what a guy. And then you go on this mission with Hamish, because he spots a special boar in the window. And you're like, all right, we got to go get this boar. And he's like, let's split up. You go up the mountain and I'll run around. And you do so. And you hear, ah, and you run down the mountain. And Hamish is off of his horse Buell. He's clutching his torso. And he's like, look behind you. And then the boar is there. And you go into a dead eye, blat, blat, and you kill the boar. And then you kneel down next to Hamish, and he's like, this would have happened sooner or later. I don't think he says, I'm going to go hang out with Arthur, but he's like, take my horse. He's a good boy. And then he gives you Buell before he passes away. And it's like, oh, this is it's bittersweet. Just because they shared a connection through Arthur, but had it been Arthur, it would have been so much more meaningful. And I don't know if they should have stressed wrapping up loose ends before the final mission with him, because, it in some regards, it wouldn't really have mattered whether or not you played as John or Arthur. But in this case, I think it did, because I get Buell, and Buell's stats suck. He's just a moderately good horse. So immediately you put him in your stable, but you put your saddle back on Snapchat and you ride off. I really think that they should have made Buell an amazing horse, and that there should be like a flashback or some sort. So here's the root of the thing. Did I play Red Dead the right way? And I'm going to say no. I think Red Dead ought to be played how I'm doing Animal Crossing, and then we'll get into that later. The way I'm playing Animal Crossing is just like a daily thing for less than 2 hours. I chop my trees, I see what the hot item is, and then I log off. I should have done that for Red Dead, because then I would have been able to retain better. Oh, Pablo Hernandez is the brother of the gunslinger that I caught up in the Northwest hours ago rather than months ago. And maybe this Hamish thing would have gotten resolved by then, and I would have had even more of an emotional appeal. Chris, what do you think? You think I ought to have... I am at the mercy of my own gluttony?
Right. As it sounds like some of these side stories you're mopping up kind of assume you've got more of a closely tied experience to these relationships that we're developing for the emotional impact at the end. I like that you brought up Hamish Sinclair, because even though he's one of more of the, compared to this eccentric cast of strangers you meet along the way, he's relatively mundane. But I really did appreciate getting to see this budding relationship form between him, or friendship, not romantic relationship, but between him and Arthur. But to have the climax of that arc kind of kneecapped by Arthur not being present would have definitely ruined some of the experience for me. So yeah, your complaint that Rockstar maybe didn't signpost this outcome enough to you that you should mop up this finished business with Arthur before you do this mission would have been kind of a dead giveaway what befalls Arthur on that final mission. So I don't know if that's necessarily the solution. I guess I don't think there is a nice, neat solution you can tie this problem up with a bow and put a pin in it. Don't know what you could do.
I still had fun, though, which is fine. And sort of after that mission, I logged off. I'm not sure if I'm going to go back, Chris, because what else is there to do? There's like dinosaur bones, of which I've collected 0. There's cigarette cards, of which I've gotten, I think half, but hopefully it makes a difference. There's also wooden carvings or like alien scratches. Do you remember all these collectibles that you were expected to go hunt down and you never really did, aside from the gunslingers?
This echoes my experience exactly. I don't think I even found the gunslingers.
Oh, well, each of them, you get a fun revolver out of it, though.
I miss that content. This game has a lot of collectibles in it, and a lot of them are really hard to find. I didn't encounter like any dinosaur bones.
What about the treasure maps?
I got a few of them.
Yeah,
don't
like
think I followed through on any.
Yeah, just a few. And then, did you ever get the murderer?
No, I was introduced to the case, but then never made any progress.
Yeah, me too. And that was probably one of the most exciting things, was finding like the first victim, but you never found any more. And unless I neglected to look toward that bloodstain on that tree. Am I at fault for it? I don't know. Anyway, who knows if I will go back to Red Dead? Maybe to catch that one super horse that's like on a frozen pond, which makes no sense. But
the White Arabian?
Yeah, the White Arabian. Yeah.
That's a fun task.
Is that Ivory?
That was Ivory.
Yeah.
When Ivory was still with us.
Well, did you? Oh, because you got her before the
conclusion to the story.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, thank you for bringing some more Red Dead to the show. I didn't do much of an investigation to the game's post-game, so the fact that you did check it out some more is handy.
Well, it's mostly what you'd expect. The Skinners are at it again. The Del Lobos are in Fort Mercer. Ooh, Fort Mercer. Oh, nostalgia. And you're like, yeah, that's fine.
I didn't play any more Red Dead Redemption 2, but this gives me a beautiful opportunity to plug a 17-minute video I did watch about it by this guy on YouTube named Jacob Geller. The name of the video is called Artificial Loneliness, and it's specifically about this area you were exploring post-game, Heath, that's towards the south, not quite as heavily populated as most of the areas you visit along the main campaign. And the video was dealing with that. The main subject, the crux of the video, was examining how he, the author of the video, actually really grew to appreciate that about this sparsely populated, more isolated area of the map, and how it actually led to him feeling more immersed, which is not what you would expect, because Rockstar spent so much time fleshing out the beautiful meadows of New Hanover and the state of Lemoyne with tons of emergent narrative moments and strangers to find. And the southern part of the map is completely lacking in any of that, or most of it. You said there were a couple emergent things that would occasionally crop up, but the thesis to this whole video was examining how, like, every encounter you did run into on this wide open desert arid plain would feel a lot more meaningful when you weren't being overloaded with them every few minutes. How did you ever know there was something called like hollow point bullets in this game?
I did go on one super ammunition shopping spree in Van Horn. Yeah.
Got it. If you set up camp, you can like take out a knife, and this is no resource cost associated with it. You can carve an X into each of your bullets for free, and it makes them do more damage. They are definitively better versions of your regular bullets. So the question is, why wouldn't you use hollow point bullets all the time? And the answer is, it's kind of time consuming and like real world time to sit down and carve a bunch of bullets to make them better when in any given firefight of the main campaign, you're going to burn through dozens and dozens. And it was like a interesting observation for when he's in this sparsely populated area of the map and shootouts only happen once every like half an hour or so, suddenly it felt a lot more worthwhile to carve these bullets and make them better, since you're not going to immediately burn through your entire supply in the blink of an eye. Every shot really did count. It was an interesting perspective of this video offered that I didn't get just mainlining the campaign. So that's why I recommend it. I thought it was really cool.
Cool. And that was the, what was it? The Art of Loneliness?
It was called Artificial Loneliness by Jacob Geller.
Cool.
All right. Very cool that you brought that to talk about. What else did you have on your plate, Heath?
All right. Let's do a quick Animal Crossing. I mentioned it briefly. We have 9 residents on the island. We are only trying to get rid of maybe 2. Definitely 1, but maybe 2.
Did they double cross you or something?
No, they're just ugly. You know, I got a brown horse with like black eyes and pink hair, and the way you do it is they will occasionally say your name and walk over to you and be like, I have something to say, and you just turn around and walk the other direction.
That's the most passive aggressive.
Yeah. And then they'll come up to you like a week later and be like, I'm not happy here. I think I should go. Do you think I should go? And then you go, oh, yeah, you probably need to go. And then they're like, all right, please don't talk to me. I feel sad. And you're like, had to happen. I don't want you here. You're not nearly as cute as Iggly or Butch. Butch has a deep voice. He can stay. You uggo. So that's what I'm doing.
I don't think I would have the heart to dismiss members of my island permanently. Is there like a cap on the number of occupants you can have? Is that why you want the uggos to leave?
10.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I see why you've come to this harsh decision then.
Yeah, Annalise has to go.
All right. Was there any other cool new observations about Animal Crossing you wanted to share?
So we just finished the Bunny Day Easter tie-in event.
Yeah.
In which Zipper comes to your island and he's like, ho, I have hidden all these Easter Bunny Day eggs around the island, and it's up to you to collect them and build all of the DIY recipes associated with them by Bunny Day, which was this past Easter. And if you did so, you got like a fun gift. And despite my best efforts, I neglected to get enough water eggs to build the water egg outfit. And so I failed to complete Zipper's quest. And Zipper's gone. He's not going to be back until next year's Easter.
Wow.
The Twitter firestorm reaction to Zipper was that he was like this slave driver horror antagonist. Did you ever watch Prince of Egypt, the animated movie? It's not a Disney movie.
I have seen it, actually.
Yeah, remember the beginning of the movie where it's like, deliver us, and like they're building the pyramids? Or no, they're building a sphinx. The music, ironically, was composed by Hans Zimmer, who you know from Inception and The Dark Knights.
He's the creative mind behind Playing with the Big Boys Now?
Yeah, you know. When did I tell you that?
No, I have a friend from college who loved that song. That's why I'm familiar with it.
That's an inside joke with me and Bailey. Playing with the Big Boys Now.
Well, make room for a third because I'm moving on in.
This is totally unexpected. Yes, that is Playing with the Big Boys Now. Wow, that's your go-to for Hans Zimmer songs. Anyway, so people were photoshopping Zipper, who, to put it in your mind, this sort of like Five Nights at Freddy's, right? The horror amusement park.
Streamers love it.
Yes, yeah. It gets huge numbers. The main antagonist is this blank expression, smiley face bear called like Fuzzy or something. Or no, his name is Freddy, right? I think it's Freddy is the name.
I think his name is just Freddy.
Yeah, not Fuzzy. Where did I come up with that? Zipper has this same expression. He's a yellow bunny, and he just dances in the plaza nonstop, unless you like catch him taking a break, which is kind of funny. But his expression is still like the blank smile, even though he's like, "Oh God," and then he gets back into the dancing. Anyway, people were photoshopping him as this pharaoh slave driver, putting his face in place of the Sphinx. I'll send you it through Twitter. He also has like a zipper on the back of it, on his back, eponymously. And people were joking that if you unzipped it, the monster from within would be able to climb out like Men in Black style. Just because his activity was so monotonous, and you'd be fishing and you'd be like, "Oh, I caught another water egg," despite actually wanting the April fish that aren't going to be here come next month. And like doing a slingshot and getting a sky egg. And so that was like, the community really dug Zipper's whole event. I don't know what the next Animal Crossing event is, but I'm looking forward to it because it's definitely a lot of fun. And the game has only been out
since the March 20th.
Yeah, tomorrow will be a month. And I'm glad that we are all still sticking with it. It is still a quarantine favorite.
I really like this idea of the Animal Crossing lore being twisted and corrupted once it was opened up to the internet and Twitter specifically. How has your stock performance been?
Right.
Big returns?
So not massive returns. I've seen screenshots of people selling off for like 600 a turnip or 500 a turnip. I've only been able to do like 150. So if you do the math, that's 40% return, which is still massive if you were doing real world dollars.
Oh yeah, especially in this market.
Yeah. So I've been doing well. Neglected to get on the stock market this week. So I have 1 million bells to do with as I please, and I'll probably just dedicate that to the island, as I mentioned.
Sure.
But the stock market, as I prophesized, once you have virtually unlimited money, your engagement starts to go down, and I've stopped. Now that all my trees are where I want them to be, the game has slowed.
Okay. Your actual desire to play more has slowed.
Right, yeah. I got all my oranges on my mainland, and then the residential area is cherries, and then I got the apple grove north of that and the peach grove north of that. I have yet to find a good spot for pears, probably to the left of Bamboo Heights, you know. And then I made an executive decision. Originally, the island that's in my island that was going to be its own nature preserve, because I imagine the rest of my landscape I'm going to turn into this perfectly egotistical paradise cityscape, but leave that center island exactly how it was from day one. I've changed that. I'm now dedicating the center to Money Island, because you can plant bags of money into the ground and they will grow into trees that bear bags of money.
You're saying money literally grows on trees?
If you bury it and wait 3 days, yeah.
Oh, man.
And the funny thing is...
Should I try that right now?
No, don't try that now. No. I'm not going to build any bridges to it, so it's going to be like my bank that only I can get to. And I thought that was worth bulldozing my nature preserve.
I like it. Replacing nature with capitalism. Yeah. Very fun. All right. I believe you've played one more game. The game I've been most excited to hear you talk about.
Oh, I thought you were most excited about that Red Dead.
No.
Yeah, so yeah. Oh Christ, did you just see what Justin posted in the Discord?
Let me take a little look.
It's demonic.
Oh my gosh.
That's horrifying. Let's leave this in.
Popcorn is just floating in the orange juice.
It's a blue mug too, which so drastically clashes with the orange that's in it. Wait, Wait, is that orange juice or like a soda bottle in the background? I don't know what would be worse.
It looks like there's no way that's orange juice, right? Well, it is awfully similar to the color of the liquid in the cup.
It's not carbonated. I don't know. The questionable bottle in the background, or because orange juice comes from like a carton.
Right. Any sane person would do that at least.
Yeah. What's like this would-be Mountain Dew bottle in the background? And I love how that he just perfectly plopped the popcorn in there. It's almost artistically done, which makes it worse.
There was definitely some intention behind its placement, without a doubt.
He's out of our friend group, right?
I think he's out of my life.
So, back to the show. You were most excited to hear about Baba Is You.
I am most excited to hear you talk about Baba Is You.
Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, well, I'll tell you this. I've only played like 90 minutes, so I didn't beat it.
Okay. Of course. I hear it's pretty lengthy for a puzzle game.
Yeah. I bought it as like a thing that Bailey and I could do together because it's a charming... Okay, so it's a puzzle game, everybody. And the instructions are written on the level. So it literally will say, Baba is you. Flag is win. And you have to move your Baba onto the flag to complete the level. But you can also move the parameters, which are literally built into the level to make rock is win. And if you were to touch the rock, you would win. I have not yet gotten to the point in the game that I believe Game Maker's Toolkit and some of my streamers that I watch have gotten that makes the game extra special. Like,
okay,
it's
still
certain games that have a point at which things are like, oh, now you're in there.
Now it's on.
Yeah. I feel like Undertale has that. Outer Wilds has that. Baba Is You supposedly does, because that's why I stopped watching the Game Maker's Toolkit video. So I can tell you this, I've gotten to some water levels, and the levels themselves, some of them have taken me in excess of 20 minutes to figure out. Alongside Bailey, we literally would talk over Discord and be like, so jelly is sink, but flag is win. So how do you get to and wall is stop? And, the most articulate discussions trying to, because the way you win that game is reading it aloud. It's the only way. You imagine like the Greek philosophers like Euclidean and Archimedes doing Baba Is You and just doing logic proofs, being like, therefore, lava is hot. So, anyway, I'm enjoying it. I wish I had more to report on. I've only played it like 97 minutes according to Steam. So when I get to the turning point, you know what I'm talking about. Can we better explain what the turning point is? Like, what other games have turning points?
What I think you mean by turning point is the whole concept of this game. I'm going to go ahead on the record and say it's pretty innovative.
Inside.
Okay, sure, Inside. Baba Is
Portal.
You. Portal, sure, yeah. Baba Is You. This is a pretty fresh concept. They really need to anchor you in these mechanics. Make sure you're well versed in the fundamentals. Get a grasp of what capabilities you may have. So I very much think if you're only 90 minutes in, you're still probably coming to terms with the building blocks before they push you into the deep end. And that deep end segment would be this turning point you're referring to.
Yeah.
But it's compelling enough so far that you want to get to that eureka moment.
I do. Yeah. Because this is more indicative of my own quirks than anything else. I just want to be able to watch the rest of that Game Maker's Toolkit video and watch the rest of that stream.
Let me guess. It's sitting in your watch later playlist on YouTube.
I never use that. Anybody who uses that is probably much more successful because they restrict their compulsions to continue watching. I've never used watch later. I only
really?
leave it open in a tab and then go back to it once the thing I'm working on has elapsed in its engagement.
Oh, this makes a lot of sense because I love killing tabs. Nothing gives me more pleasure than opening and closing a tab in quick succession.
Yeah.
I use the Watch Later playlist almost exclusively for video game videos that I want to avoid spoilers on until I have played said game.
Okay.
I've got several Game Maker's toolkits, like for the Outer Wilds video.
Yeah, and Super Bunny Hop and yeah.
Super Bunny Hop as well.
No, watch later is just in my mind, or it's at the it's at the forefront. I can't not think about. I can't wait to watch that video.
You can hear Mark Brown's voice in your dreams, just waiting to talk to you more about Baba Is You.
I still have watched too few videos to know Mark Brown by voice or name.
Okay. I think he's the Game Maker's Toolkit guy.
Yeah, that's why you said his name. Yes.
Gotcha. Yes.
The point I'm saying is he's still not a definitive personality like that of George or this other YouTube that I've been watching called Scruffy. Scruffy goes into the sound design elements of a certain game. Primarily Nintendo's. Like he'll do like a whole video of how Pikmin 3 does amazing ambient audio. And I'll be like, whoa, sign me up. So Mark Brown has not yet reached that echelon.
I see. I can hear Mark Brown in my head right now.
I imagine I will too hear Mike Brown in my head soon enough.
All right. You let me know when you get to that stage.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That was a pretty good summation of your weekend games, Heath.
Yes.
Some nice variety there.
Yes.
I've structured all of my game playing the past couple of weeks to serve as a rebuttal.
No. I mean,
but
yes,
this is
but
not.
no.
This is not exactly what you think it's going to be.
Sure it is.
So as our listeners may recall, Heath spent a good chunk of the previous episode of Mobius Tubes, episode 37, about the first 40 minutes or so.
One might say the better half of Mobius Tubes is 37.
Just tearing into Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And by extension,
Ubisoft stock plummeted.
Implying that anyone who would enjoy such a game probably has taste when it comes to gaming. He described Assassin's Creed Odyssey as heavily commercialized product feeling game.
Literally waterlogged.
Yep, waterlogged. He described it as a game lacking any heart. So, to some extent, Heath got a win out of that segment because I have put down Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I've played it a little bit more, started making it kind of a podcast game where I mute the game and just crunch through my podcast backlog. But for the time being, I have put it on the back burner because I have a more pressing issue to attend to. I need to prove that even though I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I also play games that feel artistic and feel like they were made with love put into them. So I have brought two counterexamples to the show this week. One to demonstrate artistry, the other to demonstrate love and
dedication.
Painstakingly dedicated work put into it.
Yeah.
Finely crafted details. And the two games in question are Gris and Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales. I'm going to tackle them one at a time here. So, Gris.
Gris is the 2D platformer?
Yeah, it's a late 2018 release. We probably only mentioned on the show once before because it was nominated for several categories in the 2019 Game Awards, our predictions episode. It ended up taking home the win for Games for Impact. And it was also a heavyweight contender in Best Art Direction because this game is gorgeous.
Quick.
The very first thing.
Spell it first.
Oh, yeah. There's actually a fair amount of contention around how you pronounce the name of this game.
You pronounced it right.
I am pronouncing it according to one of the developers on Twitter who clarified. The game is spelled Gris. Gris is the Spanish word for gray, which makes sense narratively because just vaguely you're supposed to be bringing color back to this colorless world. It is very much an art house indie game. It's also pretty short. I played it across 4 sessions of about an hour each before I beat it. And I actually was going to have... I had completed my first 2 sessions, right? I was at the halfway mark. And I was going to have a very different discussion about this game than the one I'm going to present today. Because at around the halfway mark, my impression of Gris so far was... My openings bit was going to be Gris is this 2D puzzle platformer that's really light on the puzzles and the platforming, which isn't exactly high praise. But this game starts out super bare bones. You know how you can like hit the start button on a game, Heath, and then go into the controls section? And sometimes you're greeted with this diagram of a controller and little arrows going to each of the buttons that explain each button's function in a game.
Yeah.
This is a pretty standard like controller layout diagram. If you were to do that in Gris, there is one button. It is the A button, and it tells you in the control diagram section that the A button is to jump, and that is the entire schematic of your controller. So there's not a whole lot of meat on the bones to begin with, mechanically speaking. But somewhere in the back half of the game, I feel like all of the Gris's best mechanical ideas are buried in the later half. It does develop, it does get a little more complex. While I was never standing up and applauding what it does mechanically, it was at least providing me with a couple, aha moments instead of just repetitive, of course moments. I've seen this a million times. So while Gris may still not be one of the most innovative games from a mechanical gameplay standpoint, I would be remiss not to mention that the driving factor behind playing Gris is the audio-visual feast it presents you with. Look up some screenshots if you want to enjoy yourself.
Is this the game where you clean up the dust?
I don't think so. You play as this robed woman with like turquoise hair and like stick figure arms and legs. And she doesn't really speak very much. No words are uttered across the entire playtime. And yet, if you were to tell me upon completing Gris, it emotionally moved you, I could see why. I can't even describe to tell you why this was the case, but it did make me feel touched or moved a little bit right at the end. It is a speechless game that still manages to tell a somewhat impactful story. Who would I recommend this to?
Hollow Knight people.
No, this game does not challenge you to even approaching a Hollow Knight level. It is a chill and relax type of a gameplay experience that shepherds you from diverse color palette landscape to other diverse landscape. That's a pro to the game's credit. It doesn't linger too long in like the same kind of environment. It mixes things up.
I'm looking at the red hill you slide down.
Right, that's early game, but then it evolves a lot. I really like when you get to the more water level sections. If you can pull up some screenshots of Gris on your computer and you like the way it looks, and you think you would enjoy staring at some Gris artwork for about 4 hours, then yes, I recommend Gris to you. You will probably not walk away disappointed. But if something as subjective as this game's art style isn't to your taste...
Whoa! Sorry, the blue lady just broke.
Oh, yeah. The animation in this game sets a high standard. It impressed me. But If for whatever reason this art style is not to your personal taste, then I don't think the relatively by-the-books puzzle platformer Under the Hood here will really do much to impress you. You can probably safely skip Gris if the watercolor aesthetic is not to your liking.
What did you play this on?
I played it on Steam, on my PC.
Okay.
It has a similarly beautiful soundtrack to score the beautiful illustrations. I walked away pleasantly surprised, but I don't give it my most hearty recommendation just because it didn't really break any new ground in the gameplay space.
It broke new ground. Did you? Oh my gosh. Go on.
I'm sorry, was there like an unintentional pun there?
Chris, I am the king of non sequiturs. You know this.
Oh yeah, it's practically written on your name tag.
You inadvertently said one of the funniest catchphrases from, and you look this up later and you'll be like, oh, that's not that funny, of Red Letter Media. You know those guys, right?
I've definitely heard the name, probably watched some of their stuff. What would I know them from?
Oh, from the Mr. Plinkett reviews of Star Wars.
Of Star Wars, yeah.
If you're not familiar, that it's not going to matter, but it broke new ground was a significant takeaway from one of their reviews.
Okay. It's like a catchphrase during one of the reviews or something?
Yeah. Go back to what you were saying.
So that was Gris.
Yeah.
A pretty normal puzzle platforming game with well above average artwork and sound design. The other game I played is the one I would attribute having a lot of heart poured into it. And that should come as no surprise because this game was developed...
It's a Witcher game. ...
by one of my personal S-tier developers in the entire video game industry. Do you remember that exclusive list, Heath? There's only 3 members on it.
It's... Oh, I'm trying not to say the first one. I can only think of that one. All right. CD Projekt Red.
Well, you got 1 out of 3.
I don't know.
You'll kick yourself when I say the other 2 are Super Giant Games.
Yeah.
And also Arcane Studios of Dishonored and Prey fame.
Never mind.
But anyway, I'm in a weird... I'm in mop-up mode, okay? I'm checking off the last pieces of Witcher media I have yet to consume, which is this game, Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales, the black sheep of CD Projekt Red's Witcher games.
This is the card game, right?
This is a card game, yeah. I also happen to be reading the black sheep of the Witcher book novels right now, which is Season of Storms. Why is it the black sheep? Just because... all the other Witcher novels released throughout the 90s, and then this one kind of, to accompany the rising popularity of the games, released unceremoniously in 2013, like 15 years after all the other books had wrapped up and concluded. And it's also not even like a continuation of the story. Season of Storms, the book, it's not a prequel, it's not a continuation, it's just wedged right in the middle of the timeline, which is a weird place to set new content.
So yeah, you suspect it's an Andrzej cash grab.
To an extent, as I'm reading it, I mean, as the years have worn on, I don't think his writing has suffered. This wasn't an easy cop-out, low-effort cash grab. He wrote some really witty dialogue, as he's known for, and sharp banter between characters. I think it's pretty good, even though it can't necessarily advance the plot so much because of its setting being in the middle of things. But this isn't a book podcast. Let me get back to Thronebreaker. Thronebreaker is crazy good. Oh my gosh.
Really?
And it flew under the radar so much. It came out in 2018, not super long ago. And yet, I don't think it sold well. Didn't get any recognition I have seen at any of the video game award shows. Like, despite it being this big budget strategy game, it didn't even get a nomination nod at the Game Awards, which is baffling to me from someone as big as CD Projekt Red. I guess you can attribute it to kind of having a somewhat niche appeal because this does not follow Geralt of Rivia. This follows a side character not even seen in the games previously, Queen Meve, the ruler of Rivia and Lyria.
Who I know from Netflix?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
She might make an appearance in a future season, but currently I think she's just relegated to the books.
Okay.
Which would cripple her
Notoriety.
recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to be like a kind of a hardcore Witcher fan, and you also have to like strategy card games, which previously the Witcher games haven't been about so much, unless you're one of the jokesters who, because Gwent, this card game that appears in the Witcher games, is a mini game in The Witcher 3. There's the running meme, of course, that Witcher 3 is this collectible card game that just happens to be set in this open world RPG side story.
Yeah.
Because they put so much time into it in The Witcher 3. Like, it has its own comprehensive quest line, and main characters you encounter across the story all happen to play it, and you can win their unique custom cards from them if you challenge them.
Wait, like even the villain, even like the main antagonist, who's like a sorcerer, is like, come up to me as Geralt. He's like, you Witcher, you've finally come to rescue the Princess of Sidra, but you've fallen into my trap card.
You'll encounter mortally reprehensible people
man.
you get sucked into their quest lines involving like domestic abuse and murder, and then as soon as it's wrapped up, you can say, care for a game of Gwent.
Wow.
And then play with them. It's amazing. You've got to get on that game, Heath.
I'm sorry your daughter had an untimely death. Combo.
Anyway.
Wait, actually, here's a thought. Not to derail Thronebreaker any more than I already have. So in the Heath versus Chris, who is the better gamer, can we play Gwent against each other?
There is a standalone multiplayer Gwent game, yeah.
Oh, you know what we ought to do is like a side competition of games within games. You bring Gwent to the table, and I'll bring Five Finger Fillet from Red Dead, of which I am the master.
Are we talking OG Red Dead Redemption or the sequel?
I doubt OG's Five Finger Fillet is any different. I just know that when it comes to, have you ever, you've played it in RDR2, right?
I've played both iterations.
Okay, yeah. So you play it once and you beat your opponent. A new guy sits down and doubles the bet, right? Or
I think so, yeah.
Did you never beat the initial guy?
I definitely didn't put a lot of time into it. I think I racked up one win and then quit while I was ahead.
Okay, had you kept playing, because Five Finger Fillet is just button mashing of a different pattern. It starts you off with just like A, B, A, B, A, B, and then it'll do like A, B, A, B, A, X, A, X, and then it'll be like, yeah, what is it like?
It's like Rapid Simon Says.
Yeah. And I'm so good at it. To the point at which, if you beat 5 opponents in a row, you will have effectively defeated everyone in the town, and you won't be able to play in that town for a period of time. You gotta go someplace else if you wanted to play more. So that's what I bring to the table against your Gwent if we ever do the games within games tournament.
You're digging up the Who's the Better Gamer segment from like more than half a year ago.
We will do it.
That was, yeah, okay.
At some point.
I don't believe it, but if you say so.
The loser has to drink popcorn orange juice.
Oh, God. Maybe that should be the stakes for the fantasy publisher draft.
No. I'm losing. Final Fantasy's review embargo is up, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the game is totally out. So the addendum to the update last week. Wow, we're really off topic. It came out. It got really good reviews. So pat yourself on the back, Heath.
Am I still in the negative?
I think you are barely in the negative.
Dang. Oh, that was my golden goose. Anyway, Thronebreaker.
All right, taking a step back, all the way back to Thronebreaker.
Okay, here I'm gonna say it again. Thronebreaker to me looks like Cuphead.
Why?
Not in art style, but in overworld tiny character walk along the map.
Okay. Yes.
Until you get to the actual game, which in this one's case is Hearthstone.
Yes, in the same way Cuphead has this isometric view of a map that shepherds you from boss fight to boss fight, Thronebreaker takes a similar approach. You walk around as Queen Maeve's avatar. It's supposed to represent your entire military army, though, and you walk across the landscape of various countries you will know if you are a Witcher lore fan.
The continent.
Yeah, the continent. And you will be... It's kind of a resource management game. You collect gold, you collect firewood, and you collect recruits for your army. And those three resources can be spent to craft new cards for your deck. They can be spent on upgrades for your camp, which do things like reveal larger sections of the map for you, or increase Queen Maeve's movement speed, or grants you access to new card types. You also will have to spend or acquire resources when making ethical dilemmas, because you're going to walk across various characters in your travels, some of them fairly minor NPCs you just have a single encounter with, other fully named and voice-acted characters who may join your party. And in that sense, it gives me Banner Saga vibes.
She's like, Your Highness, this one barbarian clan up on the ridge, they played the killer card and it ruined our crops. May you please dispatch with them?
Maybe. Here's one. This is a good
I thought you played this
point
game
to bring up. Talking about Gwent.
No, we're talking about Thronebreaker.
Thronebreaker uses a version of Gwent in the card battles. There are like 3 versions of Gwent floating around out there. There's the minigame Gwent in The Witcher 3. There's Gwent, the standalone multiplayer game. And then there's this version of Gwent in Thronebreaker. All of them are subtly different from one another, with like different card balances, different numbers of rows on the battlefield sometimes, because Thronebreaker uses 2 instead of the standard 3. This card game called Gwent that floats around between all these Witcher properties, each in a different iteration of them. That makes it kind of confusing to keep track of.
Chris.
Yes. What?
So in Thronebreaker, which is a card game,
yes,
there is Gwent, the card game.
Yeah.
Who plays Gwent in Thronebreaker?
Good point, because in The Witcher 3, Gwent is people literally playing cards with each other. In Thronebreaker, Gwent is supposed to be an abstract metaphor for actual battles taking place.
What?
Yeah, so like when you throw down a card in Thronebreaker, it is supposed to be you actually deploying your troops.
Okay, right. I get that. Your troops, they are characters, no?
Yeah, you'll have generic Rivian pikemen, but you'll also have my buddy in the nobility, Count Caldwell. Who is a named and voice acted character that you talk to.
Okay. Sorry, Count Caldwell is a card? You'll see where I'm going.
Yeah.
All right. In the original series, is Count Caldwell a person you can play Gwent with?
To my knowledge, Count Caldwell is a newly created character specifically for Thronebreaker.
Oh, okay. Are there any? My point is there such a scenario in which I can headcanon my way into saying that Thronebreaker, the card game, is where you play cards, and then the characters that are those cards have been known to play Gwent. So like they are the combat that is your cards is them playing cards. And I'm just trying to set up a world in which there's like infinite incursion, that it's just cards playing cards playing cards.
Well, I can't say for sure. This is spoiler free, but in Thronebreaker's promotional artwork, I mean, Geralt is pictured on the cover. Maybe. I'm assuming he's in the game somewhere, which probably means he has his own card. And if you've played Witcher 3, you know Geralt is a Gwent fiend. He loves to play. So that would be the infinite recursion scenario you are envisioning.
Yay. I'm delighted by this.
Okay. Why do I think this game was made with so much heart in it? The writing is impeccable. And the voice acting that goes along with it, to boot. It manages to capture Andrzej Sapkowski's really sharp and pointed dialogue without feeling like a ripoff. It feels almost as if he could have penned the words himself.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I know he doesn't like the games very much, so he might take issue with that fact, but I feel like they do his writing style justice in all the actually really compelling story developments that occur across Thronebreaker. Also, man, the production values of this game. Hearthstone is a pretty card game to look at. Thronebreaker, despite what I assume is a much smaller budget, man, when you throw down like a golden card, which is like one of the main story characters, and the animation is playing on it, it looks so good. There's a bandit enemy you encounter early on in the game called the Duke of Dogs. And he's like lounging in a tree, and in the background, a building he presumably booby-trapped will blow up. This is all in the card artwork. And then he like has a chuckle to himself. And it's gorgeous. And then Count Caldwell, he's supposed to be this like portly aristocrat who has a card, and he's holding like a lapdog in his hand. And it shows him like shuffling around side to side. But then like every 30 seconds or so, the lapdog will like start to urinate on his clothes, which is such a small, interesting detail, I guess, which doesn't have to be in there. It doesn't contribute anything to the game, really, but they painstakingly animated these animation loops for the cards with such small, tiny details, and it really impressed me.
It sounds like Pokemon should take note.
Oh yeah, Sword and Shield's animations left something to be desired, didn't they?
Yeah.
But as a Witcher fan and a card game fan, I am adoring Thronebreaker. It is like a surprisingly meaty game. I am only 11 hours in with no end in sight. I think this is a pretty long game, actually, which is surprising. And I'm loving it. The only complaint I have so far is that battles have been relatively easy so far. I actually went ahead, I never do this. I went ahead and bumped the difficulty up from normal to hard just because I was winning by such a landslide, it felt kind of pointless. But that is my only complaint so far. Thronebreaker The Witcher Tales is an underrated gem you should not sleep on if you care at all about what a Witcher is.
Oh, well, I guess... Yeah, I guess I need to, because I'm supposed to play all the Witchers. So
Whoa! That would be a big undertaking. I don't think I can recommend The Witcher 1 in 2020. It has been too long.
Well, add this to my long list of things that I gotta play. Obligatory Thronebreaker is now.
I should mention, Thronebreaker probably shouldn't be your introduction to The Witcher.
Netflix already has.
Yeah, that's true.
Henry
Netflix
Cavill
is pretty
my
good
introduction.
And what an introduction he was. All right, I mean that's all I've been playing this week.
Man, we crushed it this episode.
Yeah, we had a lot to say.
Yeah.
Hoo boy. Okay. In that case, we will take a break, and when we return, we'll have the hottest news stories for you. See you then. And we're back.
Chris, the joke I was trying to make with Thronebreaker was a farmer comes up to you and he's like, "Help, Your Highness. We've been harassed by these people over the ridge." And she's like, "Oh, did they come and burn your crops?" And he's like, no, they played the Demogorgon card +2 with a dragon bone.
Got it.
And she's like, my God, you know, that kind of thing.
So in the game, the card playing is just an abstraction. So no one ever makes a reference to actual cards. It's just, oh man, we're getting ambushed right now. Cue to the card game to resolve it.
I know, but what I want...
What you want,
is
okay.
The brothel shows up and they play like Seductress card which has a +2, you know, I don't know.
Heath, we need to close the lid on this discussion because we're in the news segment now.
All right. Let's start with some of the news.
You got it.
Happy anniversary to Fire Emblem.
Are we talking like the original?
Fire Emblem Awakening, first released on this day in 2012. It was designed as potentially the last Fire Emblem title, but surprise runaway success gave the series a new lease on life.
Wait, it wasn't 2012, was it?
Yep, Fire Emblem Awakening. You're welcome. Came out today, 8 years ago.
Ah, Japan it did.
Oh.
I was going by the North American release date, which was 2013, because it's a 3DS game, and when did the 3DS come out? Okay, I was mistaken. Yeah, the 3DS has been out since 2011, so it could have came out in 2012 in Japan, as it did. Yeah, so this game, I'd never played it, but it's the one that's responsible for like the Fire Emblem resurgence we've been experiencing ever since then. It followed up with a whole bunch of Fire Emblem games, from like remasters with Shadows of Valencia, or the somewhat maligned Fire Emblem Fates trilogy of games that all released simultaneously to mixed success. Fire Emblem mobile games, I think that's called Heroes. And then, of course, the most recent Three Houses release, which is the only one I'm familiar with.
Oh. What? Really? That's the only one?
Yeah, I am a brand newcomer to the Fire Emblem hype train.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I never really, because you were familiar with its predecessors, which maybe just told me that you were a diehard.
No, I am a poser.
Oh, okay, good.
So you brought it because you thought I was a Fire Emblem
No, I thought you would be
fan.
like, oh boy, Fire Emblem Awakening. I remember when I first played it.
Nope, that was not the case.
Damn.
I've never owned a 3DS.
Embarrassing. I know your co-host. All right. Next news. Valorant. Chris, how much Valorant have you been playing?
None, but I've heard this name getting thrown around. I think you need to fill me in.
So, Riot Games, the makers of League of Legends, the most popular game in the world, has produced a 5v5 first-person shooter that they, I assume, expect to be the Overwatch killer?
Okay, so it takes inspiration from like hero shooters, kind of.
Yeah. And all of the streamers have been playing it, and it's doing okay numbers, and I've just kind of been inundated by it. And I was just wondering if you have like even ever so slightly heard about it.
Yeah, I've slightly heard about it. Riot, after more than a decade of basically only producing League of Legends, are now just exploding with a whole bunch of new projects, and this is one of the earlier ones. So it's significant for that reason, for sure. But, as like a multiplayer only type of game, not exactly in my line
No, I
of
never
sight for
expected
games.
you to play it, but just like, are you thinking of it as like, is this going to catch on to the extent at which League of Legends has? Because League of Legends is a god, like, I still get ads on YouTube videos that are like, come play it, from like certain influencers. Do you think Valorant is going to rise to the occasion, or is that just going to get totally washed out by Overwatch and Overwatch 2?
That's a good question. It definitely has the advantage of that built-in fan base who is attached to these League of Legends champions and characters, and having them ported over to another game would definitely draw attention for these fans.
Right? Because the way I compare it is like, imagine, to the people who have no idea what I'm talking about, imagine if Fortnite makers, Epic Games, tried to come up with their own open world crafting game that was to compete with Minecraft. Do you think that they would even make a dent? I doubt it. And that's why I doubt Valorant.
Agreed.
Solid logic.
Yeah, because the merchandise side of League of Legends is huge. People get really invested in whoever their main is and buy all sorts of apparel and statues for them.
Who's your main, Gris?
I have never played a single match of League of Legends.
Can you name a single League of Legends character?
Yeah, I can. I know there's one called Jinx.
I know there's one called Raven.
Okay.
Or no, Draven? Raven?
You're second guessing yourself.
Jablaven? There are certain friends of ours that are just screaming at us right now.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
They've immediately unsubscribed.
Valorant will likely go the way of... What's that other game? Lawbreakers.
Oh, dear.
That's my prediction. Mark it down. I've never been wrong on a prediction. Next news. Old World is a new game. See what I did there? That if you looked at this, Chris, and you've never even touched Civilization 5, but if you looked at this game, you would say that they are trying to eat Sid Meier's lunch, and I'm not having it. The problem is, it looks just too similar. I don't hear the clickety clack of your keyboard. So
That's only because I'm trying to be quiet.
Oh, okay. It's just a silent typing.
I'm looking at it.
All right. The takeaway from the developers, and I'll say this, the makers of Old World are the makers of Civilization 3 and Civilization 4. I played a ton of Civilization 4. Not nearly as much as I have of 5. They are doing a dynastic approach. So Civilization 5, you start out as cavemen and then you finish ideally as nuclear scientists. In Old World, it looks like you are playing through the actual lives of like generations. So in the beginning of the game, the first turn is like 400 years. I think in Civilization 5. In Old World, I think they're going to have a much lesser pace, and you're going to have to make Europa Universalis style decisions. So what am I saying about that? In Paradox games, you'll have a message pop up that's like, oh, the Kingdom of Milan wants to become a vassal of our great nation. Do we allow that? Oh, but that would upset the locals who disagree with their state religion. Oh, what you gonna do? Economic boon or civil unrest? You know, that kind of thing. I think that's what they're going for in Old World, and it'll be exciting to see. This comes out in like summer 2020. Chris, let me hear ya.
Hello.
Tell me that this looks like a carbon copy, and you know what it looks like? I mentioned Overwatch not too long ago. It looks like Paladins of the Realm. You ever watch that Donkey video?
No, I did not.
The Donkey video, Paladins of the Realm, is hilarious because he totally points out how the latter up and stole all of the original ideas that Overwatch had.
Okay.
And Donkey's great how he does it. But Chris, you have no 4X in this fight. But
True.
What say you?
After watching this Old World trailer through about 3 times, if you showed me screenshots side by side between Old World and Civ 5, you're right. I may not be able to distinguish the two. They are that close. Complete with like the clouds obscuring your field of vision and the hexes and the perspective. Yeah, very similar.
Let me put this in your kind of terms, Chris. Imagine if who makes Outer Worlds? Obsidian?
Outer Worlds?
Yeah.
Yeah, Obsidian.
Yeah. Did you already forget about Outer Worlds?
A little bit.
Imagine if Obsidian put their engine to the test and made a first-person stealth action game RPG set in Victorian Germany and introduced whale oil mechanics and blink mechanics and not rats but squirrels, and they called it Lack of Valor. You'd be like, what the heck is this? Trying to steal Dishonored's lunch. And so that's the place that I'm coming from. It's like they're trying to carbon copy my baby, even though they also worked on its predecessor. And so I don't know how to feel about it. How would you feel about it?
Given that particular example, I might actually be pleased, just because based on Dishonored 2's kind of abysmal financial performance, the Dishonored franchise has been dormant. I think they're letting it rest. There is not a sequel in sight. So this Lack of Valor would kind of fill the void of Dishonored games we're currently getting. However, if it was a totally shoddy reimagining of the Dishonored formula, that would feel just like salt being poured in the wound.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from. I feel like Old World better impress me if they're going to go and doll themselves up to be arguably my favorite game.
Right.
Because I am most tuned to know how come that pasture looks exactly the same as it did back in 2010. Anyway, Chris, so that's Outer World. That'll come out. What did I just say? Oh my God.
Outer World.
I'm having a stroke over here. That's Old World. That'll come out this summer. You can anticipate me levying some well-needed criticisms of it.
Nice. Believe it or not, I have one bit of news to cover.
Okay.
Super prolific video game journalist Jason Schreier says he's leaving Kotaku.
Didn't he already say that?
No, this broke within the past week. It's not super doom and gloom, because he's announced he will be continuing his journalism work at another as of yet unannounced company, but we care about this because Jason Schreier has contributed many news stories to this podcast. Everything from how BioWare's Anthem went wrong, which I think you brought to the show one time. That was the article that detailed how the BioWare magic stopped working. He's the guy who broke those 100-hour work weeks with Rockstar crunching on Red Dead Redemption 2. I've read a book of his, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which I really like. Favorite chapter from that was the chapter on Stardew Valley. Really interesting story behind how that game got made. Oh, we also used some of his tweets just on the last episode about current delays in the game industry.
Yeah.
Last year, around the time of E3, he was one side of the debate of how good are leaks really for the gaming industry. Yeah, so he constantly finds a way to bleed into our show. He breaks all sorts of very big news headlines. So after 8 years, he's decided to leave his position at Kotaku to pursue other opportunities. And I wanted to make sure we captured that.
We are sad to hear him go, even though Kotaku's been on the poopy lately, right?
Yeah, they're in a downward trajectory. Definitely, especially losing him. He's probably the most well-known reporter they have.
You think he's going over to Polygon?
Unsure. Yeah, I'm very curious to see where he ends up.
Polygon could probably pay for it. They've been cashing in on those videos.
That was the only news I wanted to make sure made it into the show.
All right.
So when we come back, we will have, amongst other things, a discussion topic and maybe even an email. See you then. So it's been quite a while since I thought up a think piece or a conversation topic for us to discuss and hash out.
Well, hey, before you do that, did you want to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6?
That is a segue into this topic.
I'm so good. Aren't I the best co-host ever?
You read me like a book. All right, so precisely as Heath said, the catalyst for this topic was a combination of two things. Some leaks are coming out, maybe even just rumors. I don't think this is necessarily confirmed, that Grand Theft Auto 6 is in development at Rockstar, and these are just some estimates being thrown around. Have you seen it's like maybe 60% complete or something like that?
Yeah, but people doubt that. You know, they were hoping for like a release date as early as last month. No, I mean like an announcement of the release date.
Got it.
How much time have they had? They've had like 8 years. And that's how long it took to make Red Dead 2. GTA 6 is probably like more than a year away.
Yes, precisely. We're talking, I would say, probably not 2021. We're probably looking at 2022 would be
even
my gut feeling.
But it's never too early to start speculating.
That is not what this conversation's about.
I was hoping it was going to be like a wish list conversation.
No, this is so in combination of rumors about Grand Theft Auto 6, and as we approach the end of this console generation, something struck me. And I didn't really need to confirm this, but I just pulled up the Wikipedia page to confirm my suspicions. Looking at the games Rockstar Studios have produced this generation compared to last generation, there's a stark difference. Because in the 360 PS3 generation, Rockstar had games coming out such as they made Grand Theft Auto 4 and its various DLC chapters like The Ballad of Gay Tony. They made Red Dead Redemption and its super highly praised Undead Nightmare DLC. We got the experimental LA Noir.
Yeah, I love LA Noir.
And the high-octane Max Payne 3. And then we got their magnum opus right at the tail end of the 360 generation, Grand Theft Auto 5. And then we look at what Rockstar made during this generation, another pretty long one. It started in 2013, still going on now. They only released Red Dead Redemption 2. No story DLC to speak of. That was it. That was the only new release for the entire console generation. Looking at one of the most well-known franchises in all of gaming, Grand Theft Auto, it just missed this generation. There was no new Grand Theft Auto game this generation. It's been absent.
Because it was late last generation.
I mean,
it came out on both systems.
A year later, it was ported over to the current gen. That's right. But the comparison is last gen, we went from getting 2 new Grand Theft Auto games to 0 this one. It's just been absent that long. And
what's the gap between 4 and 5?
2008 to 2013.
Wow, they cranked that out.
And right in the middle of all that, they made Red Dead Redemption, a game of equal scope and ambition.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
Not to mention all the other smaller ones I name dropped. And that got me thinking, is this a Rockstar problem, or did we see the release output of these big franchises also seemingly dwindle this generation? Have the game dev cycles lengthened and stretched and become longer? And you can definitely accuse me of cherry-picking examples here, but seemingly some of the really big hitters did really drop off. I think of Halo. In the 360 days, we were just swimming in Halo games. There were so many of them. We got the conclusion to the big trilogy, Halo 3. We got the Noir-y One, Halo 3 ODST.
Wait, Chris, what does noir mean to you?
Oh, like saxophones and
Yes, you're right. Cigarette smoke. Silhouettes,
and
headlights,
a darker tone, and a mystery.
The seedy underbelly. Yeah, that's noir. ODST.
That's Halo 3 ODST.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
ODST. Wait, if I boot up ODST, it's not gonna start with who's the black guy in Halo? You know, like Commander something, right?
His name is escaping me.
Anyway, it's not gonna start with him in like a space orbital pod lighting up and being like, these days, this way, time to get busy orbital dropping or get busy dying. That's not, what are you talking about?
You'd be surprised how
Noir?
how tonally different ODST is compared to the other Halo games.
Yes.
Because you're playing as a regular guy compared to a Spartan super soldier. And the orbital drop that occurs at the beginning of the game goes awry, and you're separated from your squad, and you're reconstructing what happened to them through flashbacks and like this survival-esque scenario you've been placed in this city that's under siege. Trust me, I didn't misspeak when I said it's noir-y.
Now I have to revisit this because you are right in saying that it's tonally different. But when you say noir, it's not like they kick up their space boots at not the arbiters. What are the aliens called?
The Covenant.
Yeah, it's not. They're not gonna roll up into like a Covenant cantina and listen to like a lounge singer. Dooba 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 doo. Life is not what it Master Chief. Why are you frozen?
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to think of a comparison.
Maybe I embellished slightly, but I think that's a descriptor other people have thrown around.
Okay.
So Halo 3 ODST's tone aside, we also got the big prequel Halo Reach, and we saw a new studio take the reins with Halo 4 as well. So 4 mainline Halo games came out last gen. Compared to 1 this gen, we only got Halo 5. And ever since then, Halo has been sleeping. Other big franchises, I think of things like not getting a single Elder Scrolls game this generation when we got 2 last gen. I think of Mass Effect suiciding itself with Andromeda and then abandoning all hope of sequels. I think of Gears of War kind of not to the same extent, but also becoming less prolific with its releases, going from 4 last gen down to 2 this gen. So what I'm getting at here, do you think I'm on to a trend here, Heath, or am I just cherry picking examples to make a conversation topic where there really shouldn't be one? Do we think game development cycles are really stretching out to the point where certain franchises will miss entire console generations? Or is there something else in play here?
You are trying to make a case for the great 8th generation slowdown. 8th generation being PS4, Xbox One, and the Switch.
Yeah.
You're making the case that it's on the developers who chose to pull a tortoise in the hair and slow and steady wins the race?
I'm not like passing judgment on, these lazy developers are taking so long. I'm just saying, do we think we're now in a kind of game development environment where to realistically expect the same output we were used to receiving in as recent as the last generation, has that output become unfeasible? Do we think these franchises and studios should realistically going forward, we won't see them release these huge projects as often anymore because the nature of the game has changed?
Because the nature of the game has changed.
Yes, with crunch having the spotlight shown on it to a greater extent these days, and people maybe making more efforts to stamp down on that. Also, just budgets are blooming higher and higher for the AAA space. It is more resource intensive to make games at such a high fidelity. The 4K textures, that's a lot more work than the 720p resolution we were used to last generation. When the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion came out, we were fine with the fact that there were only 5 voice actors.
Stop right there. You have violated the law. What else does he say?
Stop right there, criminal scum.
Yeah. What else does he say?
That we gave that a pass. That was totally reasonable back in 2006. But now we expect every single NPC you encounter to be voiced by a different person and have their own personality to them, which makes the workload just exponentially increase, leading to longer development cycles. Yeah, has the nature of the game changed is the question I'm asking. Or maybe there's some other explanation. Maybe this was an anomaly. This generation was just a weird one for the franchises I cherry-picked. What are your thoughts?
No, they will. I think the great 8th generation slowdown is the developers reacting to the buying patterns of consumers. They know that Red Dead's sequel was going to do gangbusters. And the next Grand Theft Auto is going to do gangbusters. And so they're willing to give it the polish it requires so that upon announcement, everyone's like, oh, it looks exactly the same. What? And, sowing doubts. They're trying to make it look very nice. Skyrim 2 is going to look very nice. And they throttled down in order to give them the time to make it that nice. You mentioned cherry picking. You kind of let go how Assassin's Creed kind of kept up with its annualization.
Well, Assassin's Creed was definitely affected to a lesser extent. However, they pumped those out annually last gen, and they've already started taking breaks this gen. We didn't get one last year. We also didn't get one in 2016. Last gen, that was unheard of.
Okay, what about Far Cry?
Yeah, good call. If anything, it seems like Far Cry is sped up, hasn't it?
And they got punished for it because nobody gives a crap about the new Far Cries. So, Chris, let's say you're right. Are you telling me that upon releasing of these late bloomer games, we'll call them, the ones that have been taking so long, that the development of their successors or their, the next thing that's coming in the pipeline, are you telling me that's going to be like 10 years to develop?
Well, I mean, just look at the Elder Scrolls. Skyrim is not going to get its sequel within a decade of it coming out, I don't think.
Well, because Skyrim, its claim to fame was that it was like the biggest game. I am
at the time.
I am making this
2011, maybe.
It's and everyone was like, "Oh, it's so big and it's so dense and there's so many dungeons to do and I can't wait." It was, you could not say that it was sparse as far as open worlds go.
Sure, yeah.
It was no Mad Max. It was no, I can't even say that about Mad Max. I don't even know if it's sparsely populated or not.
No, it is sparse.
Okay, sure. And so, they doubled down. They made it bigger, faster, stronger. It's no Fallout 76. So Skyrim 2 had to be in the oven that long. It had to be. Imagine they spend 4.5 years on it and it comes out and it's Skyrim 76 and Bethesda then has to foreclose.
You think high expectations make the developers wary of releasing like half-step sequels? It makes them really pour in a lot of effort and a lot of time into really one-upping their past work?
Yes. Yeah. Half-Life is that way.
That's a really good example.
They know that the expectations are on the moon, and so they have to aim for Mars.
Well said. Yeah, and that would explain why maybe this is disproportionately affecting the huge blockbuster titles that everyone recognizes, the Grand Theft Autos, the Halos. if you look at maybe From Software, I don't think their quantity of releases has slowed down at all.
True,
Because
actually.
not everyone and their mom knows what Dark Souls is.
Right.
So that could play a factor. In the case of Rockstar, I think there's one really obvious thing we can point to. And that's the introduction, the creation of live service games in the form of Grand Theft Auto Online. Because that has been the cash cow that they've been milking for the past decade.
Yeah, you're right.
In the place of investing development into fresh new titles that may or may not sell well, they've got this captive audience throwing money at them. Grand Theft Auto 5 has been in the top sellers charts on the NPDs for the past 7 years. It never slips off because of the huge legs Grand Theft Auto Online gives the game. It would be a more risky business idea greenlighting a brand new project, which could bomb, when they've got the audience already. They just need to keep providing for them, churning out content in this online game.
So we are paring this down. We're so good. We ought to write a book. The Christian decline of video game development during the 8th generation, we can attribute to expectations inflating the value of longer development time, as well as a shift in monetization models toward a service-based model.
Right. An online service game has the legs on it developers would have only dreamed of when they were making single-player products with a definitive beginning, middle, and end to it.
Okay. So now the question that you really care about is Cyberpunk 2, Cyberpunk 78, is that going to take 10 plus years to develop?
Well,
should you
yes
expect to take 77 in moderation, expecting its successor or anything close to it to not come out until you're 36?
I say yes and no because no, I don't think the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be in development for 10 years, but I do think we're not going to see it for 10 years.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that?
They're not going to begin working on level 1 as soon as 77 comes out.
I think they're going to alternate their sci-fi franchise with their fantasy franchise. I think we will see a Witcher 4 in between, which will lead to that 10-year gap.
Right.
Which I think they have said there will be a Witcher game that releases after Cyberpunk 2077.
Well, yeah.
So that's not speculation on my part. That is from the news. I wanted to bring up, so if this the 8th generation slowdown denouement is actually happened, wouldn't we expect the video game releases to have been more sparse? Aren't we currently experiencing like more game releases than ever? Those two statements seem to be in contradiction with one another. To that end, I would say it doesn't seem like we're getting a dearth of game releases because we've had the huge indie swelling to fill the gaps. A decade ago, indie games were in a totally different space. They weren't coming out with nearly the frequency they do today. And that is all developed within the past 10 years. This time period, I'm roughly saying the biggest AAAs have elongated their development cycles to fill in those drought areas. I feel like a lot of more indie games populate the store shelves these days.
Yeah, the AAAs really lucked out that the golden age of indie games just happened to be when they really needed more time.
Well, I think us, the consumer, lucked out. The AAAs, they might even welcome the drought because that would, when their big release does drop, that would just make it an even bigger deal.
Yeah.
But we would be bearing the burden of, oh man, 4 months are going by and there's nothing on the release calendar. But a team of 3 can make Hollow Knight, and that game is of such a high quality, which previously with the tools available in, 2005, might not have been feasible for a team of 3 to shoulder that workload.
Nah.
Well, today it's a possibility. Although, I mean, Hollow Knight is like one of the biggest success stories ever, so it's not exactly a super realistic possibility.
Is it really one of the biggest success stories ever?
I'm going to say from size of the team to finished product, it's a pretty big success story, the ratio between those two.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So, do you think we'll see a similar trend continue into the next future generation that we're
that's why
on?
I brought up the Cyberpunk sequel. That was like my go-to ninth generation AAA that you give a crap about. But no, I think we are rapidly approaching the not technical limits, but you can't really give a crap about anything past 4K or 60 FPS, right?
At that point, you were
diminishing returns, yeah, obviously.
Maybe not 60 FPS, but in the resolution space, you were slamming your head against the diminishing returns wall.
Right? It can only look so much better.
Right.
Just because of our eyes.
I don't think the big graphical leaps will be in resolution. It'll be in something else, something we might not even can conceive of, like ray tracing. Who would have thought we'd want really realistic reflections in lighting?
Yeah. What game had like amazing lighting?
I think the most successful one I've heard of so far is Remedy's Control used ray tracing really well.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen the latest? I think there's a beta going on for, of all games, Minecraft that now introduces ray tracing. The screenshots I've seen look like really good. I was surprised by how good they look.
I've seen certain videos where they'll take the classic dirt cube and it'll wipe across the screen between the original and the ray trace version. And the ray trace version will like this beautifully automatically generated grassy earth block that you would think would take so many assets and so much energy to produce on the scale that Minecraft does it. Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Right.
So what do you want to see in GTA 6? You're not buying GTA 6.
Probably not. It's not a franchise I like very much.
What if they got you to buy GTA 6 by including a certain voice actor, maybe?
You want to know how you get me into GTA 6?
How?
Make it so you can play an in-game collectible card game with every NPC you meet. And then challenge them for their special cards.
Yeah. There's like a pimp that you have to shake down because he's abusing the women, and you do so by blowing up his house. And he's like, "Oh man, I'ma get you!" And then you race around the corner to avoid the pursuit. And it's like mission passed, respect plus. But then you throw it in reverse, and his model is walking on the sidewalk, not aggro. And then you just run up to him, and he's like, You wanna throw down? I play my level 3 infantry.
Yeah.
And Chris is
I would
like
be sold.
He's loving it. Yeah. You know the Shaquille O'Neal sleep meme?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it's ubiquitous, Chris. It's Shaquille O'Neal. His eyes are closed, and then because it's like something is boring happening. In your case, it would be that AAA hot pursuit pimp shakedown C4 explosion.
Yeah.
You'd be like snooze, and then you cut to a well-produced card game, and Shaquille's eyes are glowing white, and he's like. Could not be more in tune to what's happening. There's so much I have to show you. Man, why aren't we doing this in person? I could just slide this to you. Anyway, what I want to see in GTA 6, because remember, what's the hallmark of GTA 5? Quick question.
Oh, you can switch around between the 3 protagonists.
Yes. So if you get bored as playing as Michael, who just, he's on a boat and it's like, oh, I wish I was in that plane, but the airport's so far away. You just switch characters to like Trevor, who's on a dirt bike that's maybe closer to the airport, or that's like right in front of a ramp. And it's the perfect, it's like an actual good mechanic that's better than having to wait to fast travel maybe with the same character. Just switch to one. Maybe Franklin is cruising in his sports car that is also in front of a ramp. Maybe I just like ramps. Anyway, what I want to see in GTA 6 is the evolution of that, to which we look toward Watch Dogs Legion. Tell the kids about Watch Dogs Legion's Hallmark.
Upcoming Ubisoft game, latest entry in the Watch Dogs franchise, which is about hackers in a modern landscape city urban
a beloved
setting.
Franchise.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but the gimmick to Watch Dogs Legion is that you can play as anyone, literally anyone in the entire city.
You use your hacker phone to switch among any NPC. You can be that barber. You can be that dog owner jogger. You can be the grandma waiting for the train and conduct any cyber terrorist acts that you want. You can hijack the stoplights. It's all the action that you see from Watch Dogs. And that's kind of what I want. Just the be whatever you want ability with the Rockstar polish you see from GTA. So, because the Watch Dogs world is kind of hokey and there's not a ton to do. GTA, I would argue there's more, even though it doesn't float your boat a single bit. But maybe they could evolve on the character switching from 5 and take a page out of Watch Dogs Legion's book. That's where I'm coming from.
It's interesting that's on your wish list, considering we haven't even seen how that idea will turn out in Watch Dogs Legions yet. It could be ill-conceived.
It could, yeah. The reckless abandon with which you switch characters may just totally disengage the player. We don't know. We don't know.
All right. I think we've run this topic into the ground, but I liked it a lot. Which brings us to, actually, we have an email this week. So we'll transition to that segment. Heath, how would someone write to us if they had a question they wanted to be read on the air?
Listen, folks, if you want to tell us what goes good with popcorn as far as beverages go, you need only write in to MobiusTubesPodcast@gmail.com. That's Mobius Podcast. Oh, yeah, take care.
gmail.com. I thought we were going to do it synchronized. Oh, well. Okay, just like this listener did. Subject line, do you guys not have phones? That's a throwback.
We have phones.
Hello, comrades. We constantly talk about experiences ranging from PC games, PS4, Xbox, and Switch. But worldwide, mobile games actually dominate the numbers. What are your opinions on mobile games as a whole? Any we are playing right now? Or maybe some favorites from our past? What kind of expectations do we have for mobile games over the next 5 to 10 years? Thanks, Nathan. Now, I think we've taken a similar question to this in the past.
Nathan,
Have we not?
I'm not going to play Zenonia Battle of the Ancients if that's what you're trying to get me to play. That's a mobile game, right?
I think Zenonia is a mobile game.
Yeah,
yes.
dunked on them. Anyway, this is where I come in and I say HQ Trivia is back.
Oh.
Remember the game that died in February? They laid off all their staff?
We gave it a eulogy. How is it back?
Well, I tweeted about it and I was like, they are totally missing the perfect scenario in which everybody is home because of the quarantine and clamoring for some social interaction. So they brought it back. It's weird. Yeah. I played maybe like one game since its return, but I think the questions are harder and the money payout is less.
Okay.
But it seems that the app has become feasible in the current social climate. But that's the only mobile game that I'm sinking my time into. What about you, Chris?
We've definitely talked about mobile before in an email. I think I've gone on the record saying there was like a weird stretch of time for like 2 or 3 years where I was heavily invested into mobile games, and I would like visit internet forums specifically dedicated to mobile gaming. A dark period of history. Wouldn't recommend it. Last year, I did bring Monument Valley to talk about on an episode. I played that on mobile. Primarily, if I'm booting up a game on mobile, it's going to be because I'm standing in a line or I'm in a waiting room, and I turn to digital implementations of short 2-player board games primarily. The ones on my phone right now, they're like abstract strategy games. I've got Hive, a game about surrounding the opponent's queen bee with your hexagonal insects, and also one called Onitama, which is like a diet chess. Those are the only games I will repeatedly boot up on my mobile device. I wanted to call attention to, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this or anything, but at the beginning of Nathan's question, he calls attention to the fact that, yeah, we spend all of the time on this show talking about games that are releasing on consoles and PC, but if you take a cursory glance at any like industry statistics, wow, it is always kind of perspective opening to see how big of a slice of the video game pie the mobile market takes up in terms of revenue. I mean, you could pull up lots of charts telling you something similar to this. This is just from 2018 by the New Zoo Research Group. They listed the mobile revenue split in gaming as accounting for 47% of all of money spent on video game software was directly on mobile devices, which is, I mean, we're talking about a couple percentage points here. That's half of the entire gaming market is on mobile.
Revenue-wise.
Which I guess when we talk about how the gaming industry is supposedly this behemoth, but then we spend all our time talking about console games, I guess maybe that's how somehow they can be this huge number on a spreadsheet in terms of money made. But the console games themselves have somewhat niche appeal because mobile is such a big player.
It would be like if you were appraising the value of the movie industry and you realize that like the movies really don't make the money. It's the concessions, like the popcorn and the sodas that foot the bill.
That's a good analogy.
Imagine.
It's existed like this way for a while now. I'm not concerned about the slightly more niche, big budget console games disappearing and being cannibalized by the mobile takeover, but it is kind of eye-opening to see how a relatively small portion of the pie consoles and PC make up.
Yeah, I imagine like, oh, what would be the mobile game that would get me to log off of my killer PC to play on my phone? And Pokemon Go is to date the mobile game of which I've invested the most time.
Okay.
And it lacks that lasting power.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Goldilocks game on mobile, and it's definitely not Exodia.
Zenonia. He asks us what we would want to see in the next 5 to 10 years develop in the mobile landscape for gaming.
Freaking VR on your phone. You just tape the screen to your face, and you're like, wow, I'm in the world.
And I guess it's a little close-minded for me to make this statement, but my issue with mobile isn't like the capability of the device itself or the fact that I just hate it for no apparent reason. It's just the design ethos that goes into a mobile game is very different from what goes into a traditional console game, just because on mobile, the assumption is, for many developers out there, that you're out and about. You're going about your day, and you've, for whatever reason, a little dead zone has appeared, and you have time to fill. And a lot of the games are made to be these bite-sized time wasters, but play games as a hobby to be a time waster, really. I kind of want a more involved experience than that, which the assumption that goes into a console game is you are seated down with your full attention devoted to this one piece of software. And you're not just waiting for your number to get called in a line. You've set aside a block of time for this experience and this experience only. And if mobile games started providing those experiences, I don't think I'd care, because if I'm in an environment where I could sit down for like a really meaty mobile game, presumably I'm at home, and wouldn't I just want to play at a more powerful, bigger screen device than a mobile phone? So there's not like, I can't picture a way for a mobile game to slot into my life that I would really get invested into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You mentioned Monument Valley.
Yeah.
I feel like if I had Monument Valley in my Steam library, I would value it more than if it were on my phone, just by the nature of platform.
Interesting.
And that's unfair to the mobile people who that's all they have.
Right.
Minecraft mobile is all they know.
Monument Valley is a game like I sat down and carved out a chunk of time to play it. I played it like a console game, kind of. The only reason I didn't play it on Steam is because it's only available on mobile phones. So there wasn't much of a choice to be made there.
Right. I don't know. What does Nathan want from us?
I don't know what he wants from us, but I feel like we answered his question to the best of our ability.
I mean, I recall that one medieval Tinder game, right? Where you play as a noble and you have to swipe left or right to make decisions.
Yes, you're talking about the Reigns series.
Yeah. I mean, that piqued my interest to the point where I brought it, I mentioned it, but the mobility of it seems like an afterthought.
And the mobility of mobile games is like their main advantage, right? That is the one thing they have going for them that a big, beefy rig of a PC doesn't have going for it.
Yeah, and if I'm on an airplane, I'm bringing Civilization. On
your laptop, or?
Yeah. I charge it up, I play until the battery dies, and then I turn on the podcast.
I think you're pretty niche there with that strategy.
Nah, everybody does it. Everybody brings their laptops on for the flight.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's all I had to say about the current state of mobile games.
That being said, if somebody put me in a mobile game, I'd play that nonstop.
Okay. So just what Heath wants to see in the next 5 to 10 years in the mobile landscape is more games starring him.
I don't even want to be a boss fight. I just want to be like an NPC that you fool into lowering. I'll be a merchant and my prices will be very high, but you need only pass a very easy dialogue check to lower my prices significantly. I'll that makes perfect sense. And then I sell the best weapon for nothing.
All right. Generous of you.
I'll settle for that.
All right. That'll bring us to the end of the show. This has been Mobius Tubes, episode 38. Once again, you can write to us at the email address mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. Heath, any big plans over the next couple weeks?
Well, I recently acquired a new game, new to me, through Epic Games, the free things. I'm still cashing in on those. I got Just Cause 4. What do you know about Just Cause 4? That it is another Just Cause game?
I know you said there was an advertisement for Just Cause 4 in the subways of New York City a year after it came out.
Yeah.
But the Just Cause franchise is not one I've tried. I've heard 4 is maybe not held in as high of a regard as, say, 2 or 3.
No, and even then, what's their claim to fame? You could fly up to the blimp and jump off of it? Yeah.
I think their grappling hook is like the big thing.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be like super dumb summer Hollywood blockbuster action game video games.
Yeah. Why else would you play it? Just cause.
Just cause. Yeah.
So I recently got that. Oh, well, I should finish Baba Is You. Expect that for the next episode.
I hear it gets really hard, so if you finish it, hats off to you.
Oh, then yeah, I have the biggest brain. I have all the calculus.
Yeah, the hat will be coming off because your head circumference is just so huge.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
I'm going to continue to be throwing myself into Thronebreaker. I'm intrigued to see where it goes both narratively and mechanically, because the two are kind of tied together in an interesting way where if for whatever narrative reason your party member leaves your retinue, his card also leaves, so you don't have access to him in your deck anymore.
Oh, how do you get him back?
You don't.
Oh.
Unless for whatever reason you make choices that would put you back on a trajectory to meet up with them. I don't know exactly how you could do that.
Tricky.
Yeah, so Thronebreaker will be what I am playing a lot, and probably Tabletop Simulator as well.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good.
Excellent. And then in that case...
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.